At first and third and nobody out in the sixth inning of a scoreless duel between Steve and Lee Brandt. A subsequent walk to Hal McRae forces in a run, but that's all the Royals get. Meanwhile, Lee Brandt looked like he'd make that 1-0 lead stand up. He took a four-hitter into the ninth, doing it with his arm and his glove. He handled 8 chances, a league championship series record for pitchers. But to open the ninth, he walked Damaso Garcia on 4 pitches, and Lloyd Moseby immediately made him pay for that indiscretion, driving this one up the gap and to the wall in right center. Garcia scored, the game was tied, and Lee Brandt was through. And for Charlie, close not only didn't count, it hurt. Out of the bullpen, Dan Quisenberry. After a George Bell check swing single put 2 men on, Al Oliver came to the plate. He'd won Game 2 in Toronto with a 10th inning single off the Quiz, and he got to him again. Into the right field corner with this 2-bagger. 2 runs come home, and Toronto has a 3-1 lead. Perhaps Quisenberry himself said it best. In the past, said the Quiz, I used to be able to walk on water. Now and then these days, I get wet. The game's final score is also the series standing. Toronto, 3-1. NBC Sports presents Game 5 of the 1985 American League Championship Series. Today from Royal Stadium, it's the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Kansas City Royals. And it's brought to you by light beer from Miller. Everything you've always wanted in a beer and less. By Ford and your local Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By United Airlines. You're not just flying, you're flying the friendly skies. And by Team Xerox, the right products and the right people, all working together. Royal Stadium in Kansas City, and if they are to play baseball this year here beyond today, Kansas City has to beat the Blue Jays 3 straight times, once here and then twice in Toronto. That would take them on to the World Series. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. Those Royals who are students of history look to the 1925 Pirates, the 58 Yankees, the 68 Tigers, and most recently the 79 Pirates for inspiration. Why? Because those teams were down 3-1 in World Series play and came back to win. It can be done.
It can, and you know, the question that was asked by most baseball experts before this began is, can the Toronto Blue Jays handle the Kansas City Royals left-handed pitching? Well, Black pitched well, and Lee Brandt was exceptional last night, Bob. Bobby Cox is trying to make, and he indicated that last night, walking Brett with first base and third base occupied, Brett's bat a non-factor the rest of this series. That may be impossible. Danny Jackson, he can be absolutely nasty. Second outing of the year, right in this ballpark against Toronto. He pitched 9 shutout innings, left with a no decision. August, Exhibition Stadium. He struck out 6 consecutive Blue Jays. He can be nasty.
Watch that hard slider coupled with the good fastball of Danny Jackson. What about Jimmy Key? He started Game 2 for Toronto. They ask him to close it right now.
His control was a little off up there. He runs the fastball, slow curve. A good park for him to pitch in, just like Charlie Lee Brandt last night, because he can throw long fly balls.
Thanksgiving Day in Canada, by the way, is tomorrow. Will the Royals postpone the celebration, or will the Blue Jays be able to bring that Thanksgiving Day home a day early for all their fans? We'll find out over the next couple of hours. The starting lineups are next. If you've been following the series, you know this is the lineup Bobby Cox uses against left-handed pitchers. No changes. With a hot hand, he stays pat. Garcia leads off second base. Moseby with a big 9th inning double last night in center field. George Bell in left field. The designated hitter against lefties is Cliff Johnson. Al Oliver has had to perform his heroics off the bench. Barfield in right field. Upshaw at first base. Garth Orge at third base. Ernie Witt will catch. And Tony Fernandez, who has hit .308 with 4 base hits in the series and played well in the field. He's been a key, although overlooked man. He'll bat ninth and play shortstop again. Here's the Royals' defense.
After the early series jitters, the defense has settled down. Lonnie Smith will stay in left. Willie Wilson in center. Darryl Motley's right-handed bat over in right field. George Brett. Buddy Biancalana at shortstop. Frank White, the second baseman. Steve Belboni, they'd like to see his bat start getting in gear. Jimmy Sundberg behind the plate. And Danny Jackson.
And if the Royals are to force a Game 6 on Tuesday in Toronto, they need the good performance from this young man, 23 years of age, a native of San Antonio, Texas, pitched at the University of Oklahoma, 14-12 for the year, but a turnaround and a turn for the worse late in the season. Through August 22nd, he was 12-7 with an ERA of 3.05. Since then, 2-5, ERA 4.73. Garcia to start it. Takes a strike. Damaso Garcia had drawn only 15 walks in almost 650 plate appearances, counting postseason, when Lee Brandt walked him on 4 pitches to start the 9th last night. And Lee Brandt is a guy who doesn't walk many. He came back to haunt him.
There's the nasty slider. Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach, talks about his slider. Sometimes it can be a slur, but when he's got it consistently like that last one, you better be careful. That's what his fastball does. Runs away. Takes off. He has a live fastball low in the strike zone. Not many can say that.
Talking to Dick Hauser before the game, he made mention of the August 17th start by Danny Jackson in Toronto, where he worked 7 innings and struck out 9. And Hauser said, "I don't think I've ever seen as many bats broken by a pitcher as Jackson sawed off in that ball game against the Blue Jays."
If you're wondering, that low fastball that sunk, the radar gun had it at 96. That's awesome. Sometimes the radar gun pointed down. We've got it up above and that railing up there, looking down a low pitch. It can get distorted at times. Don't ask me why.
All right, I won't. Against the Jays this year, Jackson has made 3 appearances. He's 1-0 with 2 no decisions, but he's pitched well each time. A ball and a strike to Mosby. His ERA in those 3 appearances against Toronto is 1.98.
You know, we've talked about the left-handed pitchers, and the big thing, the pre-series hype. Can the Blue Jays handle left-handed pitching? I guess the bigger question is, can the Royals handle the Blue Jays' great staff? Especially if Brett does become a non-factor, as he did yesterday. They're not going to pitch to him unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't let the baby face, that nice baby-like countenance of Danny Jackson, fool you. You just got a ball up and in.
Two-one pitch to Mosby. Right at Balboni. He'll take it himself. 2 out.
That'll be Danny Jackson today for Dick Hauser and the bullpen. There may not be a game after this. So perhaps everybody but Lee Brandt, yesterday's pitcher, and Saberhagen will come out if needed for Dick Hauser. Black, who may be pitching Game 6, may be used for a couple of hitters. We don't know, left-handed pitcher.
Hauser told me before the game he wouldn't hesitate to use Saberhagen or Black. And the Game 6 starter, if there is a Game 6, depends upon which one he doesn't have to use today. If neither worked today, Black would be the best guess in Game 6, then Saberhagen if there is a 7th game.
One more, get it!
And for those of you who have been following this ongoing drama, still know little Saberhagen. Brett and Janine still expecting their first child any day.
No appeal down to Darrell Cousins at first base. The players, I'm certain, with this starting time, it's 3:41 right now in the Heartland, they're very happy the sun is not shining. It is cloudy at this point, and they'll be able to see the ball a lot better. Had the sun been out, those shadows would have been vicious.
And the sun was out until about 15 minutes ago. Game time temperature a beautiful 70 degrees. 3-0 pitch. Called strike. Scouts say sometimes Danny Jackson has too much stuff for his own good. His fastball is so lively, it moves right out of the strike zone on occasion.
I think what they might mean by that, too, Bob, is that he overthrows, and he also not only throws harder and more movement.
A drive to center, and Willie Wilson can't get to it. It's over his head. Bell is on his way to second, and he has a 2-out double.
A good fastball pitcher whose ball is lively low. George Bell, who hits best when he hits straight away. He didn't do much of that during the month of September, trying to pull everything. It's a good pitch down in the strike zone. And if Willie Wilson can't get it, he was playing very shallow for Bell. Many outfielders, look where that ball was going to be. Almost off the ground. You can see Sundberg's glove. Many outfielders would have moved back with 2 outs to prevent the extra base hit. Wilson stayed shallow and he got burned.
Cliff Johnson now. Fastball for a strike. With men in scoring position in the series, Toronto is hitting .289, 11 for 38. Kansas City, just 125, 3 for 24 when they've had their scoring chances. Popped up to the right side. White in behind Balboni, and he's got it. So the Blue Jays strand Bell. And Jackson has to feel comfortable with his first inning of work. We'll be back. Dick Hauser's lineup for Game 5. Lonnie Smith will lead it off. Willie Wilson is in center field. He's got the most hits of anybody in the series, 8. George Brett, who's hitting .500 on 7 of 14, is at third base. Hal McRae, the designated hitter and cleanup man. And the next 2 guys are key for Kansas City. They haven't gotten any offense from Frank White or Steve Balboni. Now, the Royals scored the second fewest runs in the American League. Only Texas scored less this year. But they were getting some kind of production from White. He had 22 homers. Balboni had 36 with 88 RBIs. Between them, they have only 3 hits in the series. Darryl Motley, with the left-hander going, starts in right field instead of Sheridan. Jim Sundberg will catch, and Buddy Biancalana is the shortstop. Wilson with 8 hits, Brett with 7, and no Royal has more than 3 after that.
Behind Jimmy Key, that magnificent outfield of Val Mosby and Barfield, hit with power, throw, all run well. They can chase it down. Garth Orge at third today. Tony Fernandez, Damaso Garcia, Willie Upshot first. He's made some nice plays. Rob Greta hit yesterday. Ernie Whitt behind the plate, and Jimmy Key, the left-hander.
That ERA of 3.00 was the 4th best in the league, and the winning percentage at 14-6 was 3rd best behind Guidry and Saberhagen.
And immediately Garth Orge comes tight at third base.
Lonnie Smith, who had 3 walks last night, he still has only 1 hit in the series, but those 3 walks helped out.
Interesting to see, Bob, if Jimmy Key tries to establish that fastball a little bit more in this first inning at least, especially inside, even if he has to move some hitters off the plate. If he does and then tails the ball away and the slow slop curve and the cut fastball become more effective, like that. I think he's got to establish inside a little bit, even off the plate, and then if he wants to go away, he can use both edges of the plate.
He was a member of this year's American League All-Star team, retiring the only hitter he faced in the game at Minnesota. Well hit by Lonnie Smith down the line and left, and he breaks out of his slump with an extra base hit to open the bottom half of the first. He's in with a double. Looked like a changeup, Tony, and Lonnie was waiting for it.
Batting second,
It was in
Willie Wilson.
and appeared to be just below the belt. And I think Lonnie Smith is going to have to be a very aggressive base runner, even though he's already in scoring position. If he could steal third in this situation and let Willie Wilson take care of something, instead of having Wilson give himself up to the right side, it may get them all juiced up. Cox alerting Orge and also telling Tony Fernandez, don't creep too far in the hole. Keep Lonnie Smith close. He may be moving.
The Royals had only 2 hits last night. Wilson had both of them. And you'll recall he homered off-key in Game 2 at Toronto.
Jimmy Key, a good fielder, holds runners on well at first base. Most pitchers don't like to throw to second. Fearful of throwing the ball in the center field.
If you're Garth Orge, your heart has to be in your throat. You're creeping in for the bunt. You're practically right on top of Willie Wilson, and then he swings away.
He had a pitch he could handle out over the plate, up in the strike zone to drive the opposite way. Smith has a big lead down at second base.
Fernandez in behind him. Close, but he's back safely.
I'll tell you, Fernandez, and I think he could have gotten that foot down between the bag and Smith. That's why many players don't go face first back in the second base anymore. They get blocked off. You come in with your cleats or your shoes, you can tear a guy's leg up. He's got the same lead at second.
0-1 pitch, and he's going. Here's the throw, and it gets away from Ord. He's in safely. All the factors were there. He had the big lead, he got a good jump, and Ord had to backpedal to cover.
They got to take the burden, or some of the burden, off George Brett. He's under too much pressure to produce, and he will under extreme pressure. He responds, but they're not going to pitch to him, so it's important they get a man in third like this. Lonnie Smith. It was very, very close. A good throw by Witt, but he had to throw over the top of Wilson and perhaps didn't get quite as much on the ball as he would have liked. Because Orange had to retreat from playing in.
That one's up high. It's 1-2.
They're tight at the corners, conceding the run up the middle. Fernandez and Garcia.
He tipped it back into Witt's glove, and Willie Wilson is a strikeout victim.
So, do you pitch around him? Witt's looking in and try and get the double play off the bat of McRae even this early. This point doesn't look like there's going to be an intentional walk, left-handed and left-handed, but left-handed when George is hot, they don't bother him one bit.
You know, Bobby Cox said after the game last night that when McRae walked with the bases loaded to force in a run after the intentional pass to Brett, he thought he had messed the whole ball game up. In retrospect, though, they got only that one run in the inning. They were able to get out of the bases loaded jam after that. And Toronto comes back to win 3-1. They pitch to him here, and he fouls it down the left side.
Cox said, when I walked him, I thought I was doing the right thing. When McRae walked, I thought I'd messed the whole game up. Said, when we got out of it, and I don't know how, I knew we were awfully lucky.
Inside, a ball and a strike. Brett is hitting .362 at this moment, lifetime in LCS play. He's a .316 lifetime hitter in regular season competition. Fernandez comes in. His play is to first. The Royals have the lead. He had just a little bit of trouble getting that ball out of his glove. If he had played it cleanly, did he have any thought of coming home?
No, they had the contact play on with Lonnie Smith's speed and George Brett able to make contact. Lonnie Smith was off and running, had a good walking lead in foul territory, and playing halfway out of respect to Brett because he hits the ball so hard. They'd have been playing way in, a lesser hitter, perhaps a play, but not in that one.
To Hal McRae. This is the fourth straight game in which the Royals have had a lead at one time or another. Garth Ord, long throw, but McRae doesn't run well, and they got him. So the play by Ord closes out the first inning. But the double by Lonnie Smith, the stolen base, and the RBI grounder by Brett give KC the lead.
Lonnie Smith gets George Brett an RBI in the first inning. Mike Farrar, the third base coach, has said of Lonnie Smith that he is the quickest reacting in this play than anybody he has ever coached. Remember, he coached for the Yankees, and they had Mickey Rivers with that great speed and some others. Lonnie Smith just broke out of the box, so he can be so exciting. He's already proved it today, and if his speed continues to be a factor, who knows, we may be going back to Toronto.
Coming in today, the Royals had no reason to feel overmatched by the Blue Jays for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're professional ball players who have won the Western Division 2 consecutive times, and this franchise 6 times in the last 10 years. But consider this, these teams have played 16 times now, counting the playoffs. They've split those 16 games. 13 of them had been decided by 1 or 2 runs. 5 have gone to extra innings, and another last night decided in the 9th. So there's really little to choose between them. Barfield, Upshaw, and Orge in the 2nd. Ball 1 from Danny Jackson. Jackson began the 1984 season on the Kansas City roster, pitched poorly, and was sent back to Omaha, where he was almost unhittable. They brought him back in September of '84, and he's been on the big club ever since.
Over his last 10 starts during the regular season, his record not that impressive. 4-5 ERA of 3.87. Perhaps he shouldn't be judged on that. Perhaps he should be judged on his last outing against the California Angels. A pressure game, not a must-win, but close, where he pitched outstanding. Beat the Angels 4-1. 1/3 of an inning shy of a complete ball game. Struck out 3, walked none. He did allow 11 hits, but he didn't walk any Angels.
2-2 to Barfield.
That was the ball game. He had a lot of help from center fielder Willie Wilson. Robbed the sensei. Probably extra bases and RBIs.
Full count. Swing and a miss for his 2nd strikeout.
Wicked slider. The slider, when it's down there to the right-hander, rivals that of Sparky Lyle or Ron Guidry. Late breaking, very hard. Looks like a fastball till the ball's almost in the hitting area, and that's what it can do to you.
So now it's Upshaw hitting 200 in the series. He hit 275 for the year with 16 homers. Strike 1 is called. The plate umpire is Vic Voltaggio. Darrell Cousins at first. Crew chief Dave Phillips at 2nd. Dale Ford at 3rd. Left field line Jim Evans. Right field line Ted Hendry. And Hendry, who's had his share of arguments in the series, worked a good game behind the plate last night. They were jawing at him early, but after that, things settled down.
I don't know if Jackson can maintain this stuff. He's a very strong young man. Maintain this stuff over the course of the ball game. But he is really crackling. All season long, they said of the Blue Jays, they were unknown in the baseball world. They even said it in September coming into this. I think most baseball fans now realize who the Mosbys, Upshaws, Barfields, and Steve are, don't you?
Make a left turn and head for the dugout, Willie Upshaw.
Batting 7th, number 16, Garth Forge, 3rd base.
Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach, who was a minor league instructor, has had to coddle these young kids, and I think to his credit, he hasn't force-fed Saberhagen or a lot of the other youngsters. Bud Black, of course, a little bit older, and Lee Brandt. But he hasn't force-fed them too much. Let their natural talent take over and just kept their mechanics straight.
Strike 1 to Orge. In one stretch in that August game at Toronto, Jackson tied Kansas City's club record by fanning 6 Blue Jays in succession. He's a pitch away from striking out the side here.
Steve Busby had that record. He pitched 2 no-hitters before he was 25. Now a broadcaster. Had the dreaded rotator cuff injury. You can almost see Garth Orge. You saw the hitters prior to him. They're trying to start that bat almost when the ball leaves Danny Jackson's hands. And when you start doing that, you're going to swing at a lot of bad pitching. That's how hard he's throwing.
2-2. He struck out the side, and he's got 4 in 2 innings of work. wicked slider Tony Kubek spoke about is working early for Danny Jackson tonight at 8 Eastern Time. Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Game 4. The Dodgers and the Cardinals, pair of left-handers there as well. Tudor against Royce. Royce returning to his hometown of St. Louis, and Jerry, who has been a quality pitcher through the years, has had his difficulties in League Championship Series play.
You know, before the elbow surgery, Danny Jackson and Jerry Royce is the one who had the elbow surgery. He had that same kind of fastball as Jackson. Could go through the entire ball game and just run it in and out, take off all over the plate, an occasional slider.
Frank White, Steve Balboni, and Darryl Motley in the bottom of the second with Kansas City in front 1-0.
That's where Jimmy Key has the best movement on his fastball. Runs it away or sinks it. If they start going the other way, he's got to come in on occasion, but with a little more on it than he got on it to Lonnie Smith.
In contrast to Jackson, who has pitched well against Toronto, Key has not fared well this year against Kansas City. He pitched against Lee Brandt twice, once with no decision. On another occasion, he lost the ball game, knocked out early. White with the bunt. In comes Ord, and he won't get him.
And Frank could not have gotten a better pitch to bunt on. It was a changeup, one that is a lot easier to get down to the ground, like a breaking ball, other than a fastball, which is tougher. You pop it up. But he waited nicely, and he didn't tip it off.
So now Balboni, 1 for 15 in this series, although his hit was a game winner Friday night. Ball one outside, 2 for 26, counting last year's series against Detroit in postseason play.
The infield on the left side is playing him to pull. Ord's near the line, and look where Fernandez is, toward the hole.
1-1.
These are the situations hitting instructor Lee May wants him to take a couple shots to right field and try and stay out of a double play. And wait a little longer. He had that big gap that has it right now between Garcia and Upshaw. Frank White, a pretty good base stealer. He's been into the 20s several times, but this turf and age have worn those legs down a little bit.
Now the sun comes back out. 1-2 pitch. Outside 2-2. One thing about Balboni, both his teammates and opponents say he will not hang his head no matter how things are going. He doesn't get down on himself, and I think Hauser has a lot to do with that. After he was up and down all the time in the Yankee organization, his confidence was waning. And Hauser instilled confidence back into him. Full count.
Doubt if they're going to start Frank White, but we'll find out in a second. Balboni swings through many pitches with a left-hander. You can't get quite the jump, but will Hauser play very aggressively?
Short lead, not going, base hit Balboni. Hit it right on the button. White is around second. The throw from Bell is high. On to second goes Balboni with good base running, and maybe Bell's throw should have been to second.
You bet. You should have kept the double play in the order. George Bell probably knows it now. Frank White got a good jump off first base. He is still down at third. Did he get hurt? And Bell threw to the wrong base. He's out in left field hanging his head. He knew he should have kept the double play in order with Balboni, who doesn't have good speed. A 3-2 pitch that didn't appear to have a lot on it. Don't know if it was a slider. George Bell comes up. Should have known, if you'd have known the speed and the base running ability of White, that he should have gone to second base. White does not need a coach. He plays in front of him. He is still down and hurt from that head-first slide. No chance for Orge to get Balboni. Balboni saw the high looping throw from Bal. Hitting no cutoff man. He keeps on going. Did he get his hand stepped on at third base? That's what Frank White is still down with Mickey Cobb, the trainer. Orge, when he leaped, might have landed on his hand. Hauser's out. So when you play on this artificial surface, sometimes middle infielders and plays like that, you're very fortunate that you don't get spiked a lot because they've got the rubber cleats. You're on dirt and grass where they're all wearing the cleats, you can get torn up pretty badly.
The play has scored a single, and Balboni advances to second on the throw. I was in Dick Hauser's office before the game, and what a relaxed atmosphere prevailed there. Down 3-1. The season could end for him today. He was as affable and as relaxed as you could ever expect anyone to be, or hope for anyone to be. I mean, you really can't expect it. Not everyone would be like that under these circumstances, but Hauser's demeanor was that of a very calm man.
George Brett said the pressure's on them. Even we're down by a couple of ball games with the possibility of one remaining. Watch Orge go up on Bell's throw. When he comes down, I believe his left foot came down, and his right foot came down right on Frank White's hand. The back of the hand. Being taped by Mickey Cobb, the trainer.
Tony, with the Yankees in 1958, you guys were down to the Braves 3-1. What were you thinking about coming into the fifth game at Yankee Stadium? You came back to win the series.
Every day you come to the ballpark with your bags packed. You're either going home or you're going on to the next city, and we just kept going back to the hotel, unpacking them, repacking them to go back until you finally got in the seventh game, and there was a lot of nervous time on the part of the Milwaukee team, not ours. Call it momentum, but boy, there were some guys there had trouble catching the ball in the seventh inning. That's how the pressure built up when we came back.
Because they were the ones letting it slip away. All right, here's Motley. The Royals lead 1-0. 2 on, nobody out of the second. Bouncer foul.
Bobby Cox on the artificial surface, playing his middle infielders back. He doesn't want to get a big inning going here where you end up bringing the infield in, a ball goes through, now you're looking at 3-4 runs. He would like to get out of this with 1 run, 2 tops, and see what happens.
The sun is out now. What are the problems, if any?
I don't think it's bright enough right now. There's still some little fluffy clouds, and you can see the shadow sun areas are not really finely delineated. Not quite bright enough.
This should get a run home. Mosby has to go back. Balboni also tags at second. White will score. Balboni wants to make it the third, and he will.
So the throw by George Bell to third base instead of second allows Balboni, who should have been on first, to go into third base. Might have been a different story. He wouldn't have been able to advance to second if he had been on first. Now the infield, after this long throw from Mosby, even an accurate throw I don't think would have gotten Balboni. They'll bring the infield all the way in.
Sundberg has 2 hits in the series, a double and a homer. On the corner, 1-1. Biancalana is on deck. Buddy hit just 188 during the year. If they had any thought about pitching around Sundberg, that thought has disappeared.
It appears, at least to this point, that Vic Voltaggio, the home plate umpire, is going to give the low strike. Perhaps a little bit outside. And that's good for a low ball pitcher like Jimmy Key, or he should pitch low to be effective.
He went around and he's gone. Big strikeout for Jimmy Key.
While this is going on,
Buddy Biancalana, shortstop.
He'd been running the ball away and low. Now he cuts the fastball up and in. He had Sundberg, some calls from Voltaggio, kind of looking away, and he busts him inside. The bullpen started now, Bob, for Bobby Cox, just in case.
Biancalana taps it out in front. He pounces on it and throws and got him. So the Royals get a run, but they left Balboni at third with one out. And we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. Danny Jackson gets ready to work in the third.
Leading off.
You know, there have been more League Championship Series games played here in Kansas City than in any other location. This is the 14th LCS game here. They had been tied for that distinction with Baltimore at 13. Statistical evidence of the ongoing success of this franchise.
When the sun is out like this, you can see what the hitters are hitting into. Shade through that little sun particle. The ball looks black. Sometimes even a hanging curveball can be very effective in this. You can't tell change of speeds.
Ernie Witt. Strike on the inside corner. Not much a left-handed hitter can do with that pitch from Danny Jackson. Now he goes down and away for strike two.
After Danny Jackson finished his warm-up tosses, Ernie Witt asked Vic Voltaggio to look at the ball. I'm sure it looks very black coming in right now. Can't see the rotation on the ball. It's a pretty good sun field right now for the center fielder. So Willie Wilson, that foul ball deep in the back of your picture, shading his eyes. He's got glasses. We'll see if it becomes a problem. Later on, as the game progresses, it'll be a right fielder's sun problem.
1-2. Fernandez next, and then Garcia. Squibb down to third. Here's Brett. He's got him. He knew he had Witt running, knew he could take his time to make a sure throw.
He has become so much more agile since taking 10 or 12 pounds out.
Tony Fernandez.
Spring training, they thought he was too light, but he is so much more quick now. Looks it into his glove, pushes off the right foot. He's always had a strong arm, sometimes a little erratic. Not this year.
Shortstop Tony Fernandez. Swings on the first one. Biancalana comes in. Tough hop. He couldn't get the first hop as it approached him, and the short hop slithered off the end of his glove.
He probably had a chance to make that play with two hands if he had elected to, because Fernandez, jammed as he was, didn't get a good jump out of the batter's box. And the hop changes a little bit from off the turf to the dirt. So the hitters up there now, Witt and Fernandez, are just trying to make contact. They've cut down their swing, just trying to put it in play with this bad background.
The ruling is infield single. Garcia struck out to start the game. Jackson got him on 3 pitches. Fernandez had a very short lead.
I saw that center field shot a moment ago. If it looks a little bit hazy, it's because, like the center fielder, that sun is going right into our camera's lens, our center field camera. That's why you get a little different picture.
Foul ball. There are a lot of baseball relationships intertwined in this series. For example, Ferraro and Cox were roommates on the road when they were each Yankee catchers, rather coaches. Hauser and Cox were teammates on the 1968 Yankees. Mike Ferraro was Damaso Garcia's first professional manager at Oneonta in 1975.
He taught him how to make the pivot at second base.
In fact, Garcia made 18 errors in his first 13 games as a pro, mostly on throws, and it was Ferraro who settled him down, instructed him, stuck with him.
Part of it is because Damo never played a lot of baseball in the Dominican Republic. Dominican's national sport. He played on the Pan Am soccer team.
Got a piece of it. And the fans get on Garcia because he swatted at the ball and knocked it away from plate umpire Voltaggio.
Out of little frustration, having difficulty picking up the ball out of the hand of Danny Jackson. The ball gets away. Here, you could have a heck of a time getting out of the way. You just can't see it.
In terms of movement, who would you liken Jackson's slider to? Is it too extreme to say Carlton, the way that ball moves down and in on the right-handed hitter so sharply?
If he's consistent with it, yes, like Carlton. Sometimes it becomes a slur. That's the problem with it.
White backpedaling. He's got it. Throw to first, but Fernandez gets back.
And that's what Gary Blaylock, the pitcher's coach, said. He said that it'll be Sundberg's job if he sees something a little wrong with the delivery and starts soft-tossing that slider. He becomes big and flat. He's got to stay on him, keep him in the groove. May become especially important with a 2-run lead. Sometimes that pitcher lapses into a little mechanical problem. There's Gary Blaylock. And about all there is to do in this organization. Managed, scouted, minor league pitching coach. He's had to have patience with the kids.
And here's one of them. 23-year-old Danny Jackson trying to keep the Royals alive, while 24-year-old Jimmy Key tries to get the celebration started for the Blue Jays. Mosby whacks it right at Frank White, and that'll do it. No runs, an infield hit, no errors, a man is left. Jackson and the Royals on top, 2-0. Quick flashback to 1977. Hauser and Cox were on Billy Martin's coaching staff with the Yankees when they faced Kansas City in the playoffs. You saw Hauser with Reggie Jackson at third, and that was Bobby Cox coaching in the first base coaching box on that occasion for the Yankees, congratulating Willie Randolph, who had just had a base hit.
Bobby's sitting in the dugout now, yawning. He said the worst thing about getting in postseason play is not the games, that it's all those darn parties. Once you go to dinner, once you have a lot of your time, all your friends come in. He said, I love them around, but boy, it gets tough.
For the Royals,
I'm happy to get out to the ballpark and get some rest.
The order in the bottom of the third. Lonnie Smith doubled and scored in the first inning. Right back through the middle, so Lonnie Smith with signs of life. He had had just one hit coming into today's game in the series, and that was a continuation of his troubles at the end of the regular season. He was 5 for 30 to close the regular season.
Another running fastball. Jimmy Key, usually a very good fielder. He just waved at that ball. It was hit off the end of the bat. He and Steve may be the two best fielders on this team. Now let's see if Lonnie's got a read on his move to first base.
George looking for the bunt, but Wilson had no intention of bunting as he fouls that one off.
Sometimes when Jimmy Key goes to first, he slows down his delivery, and it's a tip-off. Also, fast base runners can take off and beat the first baseman's throw to second base. But they've asked him to speed it up a little bit, become a little more uniform.
0-2. I mentioned at the start of the telecast how 4 teams had come back in World Series competition from 3-1 deficits to win. The first was the 1925 Pirates against the Senators. The last 3, the Yankees against the Braves in 58, the Tigers against the Cards in 68, and the Pirates against the Orioles in 79, all won the 5th game at home and then won the 6th and 7th on the road. Exactly the scenario that the Kansas City club has to hope for here. Outside for a ball.
If nothing else, if Lonnie Smith can divide the attention of Jimmy Key, keep his mind occupied, perhaps get a better pitch for Willie Wilson. Most pitchers make up their mind. I'm going to go over so many times and then make up their mind they're going home. Some can get poised on that rear leg, left leg, and freeze and decide. Here
He's going, and the ball is popped up. Lonnie's going to have to get back, and he didn't see it.
What
he
a
didn't
decoy.
see it. It's going to be a double play.
What a decoy by Fernandez. Fernandez kept looking like he'd gripped the ball in his glove, and Lonnie couldn't find it at all. What a decoy by Tony Fernandez in his first full season. Something young shortstops and second basemen learn. Usually when they get to the big leagues, he had that coming out of the Dominican. Watch Tony. The ball's popped to the right side. Tony's pretending he's waiting for a throw. Looking in his glove. Lonnie can't find it. Willie Wilson trying to point it out to say come back. Joe Morgan, one of those who doesn't pick up the ball off the bat. He watches players not related to the play find out where they're going.
Did you see Lonnie in the dugout? He was mimicking Wilson's motion, and he seemed to be saying that he interpreted that as meaning keep on running rather than come back. And then Lonnie raised both hands as if to say if he wanted me to stop, he should have held both hands up instead of swinging that left arm around. Long drive. George Brett, it's going to come up short. He didn't get all of it. He got under it, and it's Barfield. So Smith opens with a single, is erased on the pop-out double play, courtesy of the Fernandez decoy, and we'll be back. Does Danny Jackson have good stuff? Take a look.
Well, he has struck out 4 to this point. Struck out the side in the second. We talked about his slider, which is breaking late. And with that downward action, the fastball is good also. Breaking ball that came around the inside part of the plate. It's gotten cloudy, so the Blue Jays might be happy, at least for a while, as they step in the batter's box. Jackson, because he keeps the ball down more often than not, is awfully tough to hit home runs off. In fact, he throws a home run pitch about once every 30 innings. Best in Major League Baseball. Orel Hershiser of the Dodgers is next to that.
And consider the fact that Jackson pitches in a DH league. Middle of the order for Toronto. Strike 1 to George Bell, followed by Cliff Johnson and Jesse Barfield. Bell had a double in the first. Top half of the fourth, 2-0 Kansas City. Game 6 for Toronto. Doyle Alexander, if there is a game 6, and either Bud Black or Brett Saberhagen for Kansas City.
If Bud Black would be used in the critical situation in this ball game to perhaps come in and get a left-handed hitter or 2 out, we might see Gubas as a starter if this series goes up to Toronto.
Another base hit for George Bell. It's his 8th hit of the series.
When he starts hitting out that way, you've got to be very wary of George Bell. He's one of these guys, when he gets hot, he hit a low pitch almost off the ground over Wilson's head for his first double. This is a little bit up in the strike zone, out over the plate. Get behind him and you have to come to him when he gets hot, like he did in that Chicago series when he hit 3-4 games. He had 2 on the roof and 1 in the dead center field bleachers back at the end of August. He's strong.
So he's the Blue Jays' leading hitter in the series, and he ties Willie Wilson of the Royals for most hits. Did Johnson go? Strike 1.
You're watching Frank White at second base. He may have sprained his wrist, and he keeps clutching his hand. I wonder if that's going to affect his throwing. It's his right hand. It's taped up at the wrist. He may have sprained it instead of having it stepped on by Orge.
Well, he did have it stepped on because there was some blood. May have also jammed it in getting the hand in on the slide. The Blue Jays win here last night broke the home team victory pattern in the playoffs, which is still intact in the National League.
Danny Jackson uses a lot of his lower body. Try and think of what pitcher he reminds you of. I think of Jerry Koosman a little bit early in his career. He gets down low and generates a lot of thrust and a whip-like action from his lower body.
1-2 pitch. That will fall in front of Lonnie Smith. And Bell, aggressive the entire series, heads for third, and he's out of there.
Jimmy Williams going to have another argument with Dale Ford, the third base umpire, feeling that Bell had slid underneath the tag. Out comes Bobby Cox. So the umpires right back in hot water again. It's happened about every ball game. Very daring base running, 2 runs down, but they're going to challenge Wilson and Smith's arm. It was a very accurate throw.
They're down 2 runs. There's nobody out. The play is in front of him, but there really wasn't much doubt. I mean, George Bell has made it clear the kind of series he plans to play. He will take every chance, and this is the first time he's been burned.
He did that on game 1 of that short pop-up. He went to second base, challenged Balboni in the game. When he went to third, he got rid of it quickly. Give Lonnie Smith his due. Here comes the slide. Brett. This angle may show a little bit more conclusive. It's a high hop on the turf. I believe the foot might have been in there, and he tagged him down in the waist area. You know, he tagged the bag with his left hand, and the feet were up in the air. We indicated one time earlier, he was called out at second, that he has not been a good slider during his career. They've worked with him on it.
It looked just like the play at second on Friday night, as if his left leg beat the tag, then that leg came up off the bag, at which point Brett has the glove on him, but the left hand, almost at the same instant, comes into the bag.
Well, regardless of the call, whether it's right or wrong, you're 2 runs down. Aggressiveness is nice, but you can get carried away and give up a runner. Bell just did that.
So Johnson's at first with 1 out, and Barfield hits it right back off of Jackson. He recovers and got it.
That a little reminiscent of the crack off the bat that hit Saberhagen. It hit Saberhagen on the left heel.
The first baseman, Willie Upshaw.
This ball is so juiced up, and on this turf, a pitcher hardly has time to react. And hit him about 4 different places. Look at him instinctively pounce on it and still throw the runner out. And Barfield runs well. Ball stayed in front of him. He found it. Really didn't rush it. Remember the comment that Rick Dempsey made early on in the series about how they were rushing a little too much, trying to make the plays too fast out of anxiety.
Top foul by Upshaw. That's been a contention of yours for the past several years. You think the ball is livelier than it used to be.
You look at some of the guys that are hitting home runs to the opposite field and off broken bats, and the numbers will tell you. It's supposed to be cork center. Got one open. There's that lively little hard rubber ball in the center of it.
It's quickly 0-2. When you suggested that some of the guys who are hitting home runs surprised you, Rick Dempsey, who's sitting up here in our booth, put a shocked expression on his face and then pointed to his biceps. He's been pumping iron, pal. Something you guys didn't do in the 50s.
Pumping aluminum is what he's been pumping.
Brett. They'll get out of the inning unscathed. And so for the first time in the series, aggressive base running backfires on the Blue Jays. And the Royals cling to the 2-0 lead after 3.5.
Well, for the first time in this ball game, they've strung a couple of hard-hit balls together. Bell a single to right, Johnson single to left. Lonnie Smith charges the ball well. Got rid of it quickly. Dale Ford punches Bell out. He appeared to be safe. Show you another angle. Danny Cox may have gotten a couple of breaks on this. Bell being called out, and then the ball hit very hard up the middle that he knocked down and got Barfield.
Ford's view may be that in the instant between the time that his left leg came off the bag and his left hand hooked in, that in that instant, Brett had the glove on him.
You know the thing about it, he's safe. But it would have been very apparent and obvious if he slides right. That wasn't a very good slide.
Key handles the comebacker and takes care of McRae.
He did the same kind of slide. Remember earlier in the series, the second baseman Voltaggio there for Concepcion re-tag, and it wasn't a good slide then either.
Frank White now, he had a bunt single in the second inning and scored the second Kansas City run on the sacrifice fly by Darryl Motley. They drew better than 2 million fans here in Kansas City, and consider the size of the market. It's a regional franchise. Cities like Kansas City, Cincinnati, Milwaukee. You have to consider the fine attendance that they've racked up year in, year out in perspective against cities like New York, Chicago, LA that have the huge metropolitan areas. White goes to the opposite field, and Barfield is there.
The first baseman, Steve Balboni.
So now Balboni, who hit the ball hard for the first time in the series when he got his single in the second inning.
So they tried something new and really wrapped it for hitting purposes. Mickey Cobb now cutting that off, so the right wrist and hand is bothering Frank White. Trying to find something to make him comfortable.
Another base hit for Balboni. So the slumbering Balboni and the equally sleepy Lonnie Smith have come alive in this game. And White also had a bunt single.
If you don't have the good hard stuff to bust Balboni up and in, it'll be trouble. Now the ice bag applied to the, it's like the thumb and back of the hand area to Frank White.
Motley had a sacrifice fly in the second. And this looks like a base hit. It is. It drops in front of George Bell.
We could see the telephone ringing down to the bullpen, even though there are 2 outs.
The catcher,
It's the 6th Kansas City hit, and Sundberg bats with 2 on and 2 out. Bobby Cox obviously looks like a man who's about to panic, right?
Al Widmar, the pitching coach genius, been around baseball 44 years. First time he's had a taste of postseason play in major leagues. Said, I'm in a 44-year slump.
It started with the St. Louis Browns. That'll put you in a slump in a hurry. Speaking of St. Louis, tonight, Busch Stadium, Game 4, Dodgers and Cards, Royce against Tudor, 8 Eastern time. Breaking ball for a strike. The I-70 series. Is it going to happen? It'll take comebacks by the Royals and Cards. Hernandez gets the force on the flip to Garcia. So the Royals manage a couple of hits, but nothing more on the scoreboard in the bottom of the 4th, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. They've had some monstrous crowds through the years here in Kansas City, drawing better than 2 million this year. Hey, you do what you can, pal. What can I tell you?
Blue Jays may have let a run get away in that last inning. They had 3 balls hard, came up with nothing. Let's see now if Gary Blaylock and Sundberg get Danny Jackson back in that groove he was in through the first 3.
Bottom of the order in the 5th. First pitch swinging. Orge hits it softly and safely. So that's the 5th hit for Toronto off Danny Jackson.
The catcher, Ernie Whitt.
Coming out of spring training, Dick Hauser said Jackson was throwing the ball about as well as any pitcher on his staff. He was virtually untouchable in the spring, and that continued early in the year. As Tony told you, he slumped from mid-August until the end of the season, with the exception of his victory in the final week here in Kansas City against the Angels.
He came out of the spring really the second starter next to Black. Black faltered, so he really picked up a lot of the slack.
Witt drives one, headed for the right field corner, in there for extra bases. Motley plays the carom. Runners will be at second and third with nobody out. So Ernie Witt, who has had to spend most of this series batting against left-handers and some tough left-handers at bat, solves Danny Jackson for a double.
The shortstop, Tony Fernandez.
The most popular Blue Jay, Ernie Witt, putting together an outstanding season until the right shoulder was bruised. Steve Farr, who pitched so well earlier in this series, he's up for Dick Hauser. All of a sudden, Danny Jackson, things have disappeared for him.
He struck out 4 in the first 2 innings. Struck out the side in the second. That slider was really snapping off for him then. They play the infield back. A single could tie the ball game. Fernandez, the kid in his first full major league season, with the poise and presence of a veteran, already one of the team leaders.
Tip-off was last night when Hinkie got in trouble. He went out 3-2 and said, "Don't let up." Now the bullpen, 2 people going for Dick Hauser. That is Bud Black, the left-hander, joining Steve Farr.
2-1 pitch. Bounce to Brett. The runners will hold as he throws Fernandez out. And now Damaso Garcia becomes a very important hitter.
Damaso Garcia.
Dick Hauser hoping that he could get out of this with 1 run at most. Prevent the big inning as Cox did earlier in the ball game, or tried to.
Garcia's 0 for 2.
I think that's one of the places where a catcher, a good catcher like Sundberg, comes into play. And all those great Orioles pitching staffs, it was no secret they had good arms, but the catcher keeps you in the ball game. Rick Dempsey was that catcher for so many years. Keep the ball on the ground, keep you in a groove, keep focusing in with that pitcher. Hey, guys, if they score one run, we're still in control, but if they scored 3, we may be out of it.
The Blue Jays had a potential threat short-circuited in the 4th when Bell was thrown out trying to go from first to third on Johnson's single to left. They wound up not scoring in that inning. Here, Ord singled, Witt doubled to start it. Garcia hits a little flare out behind second base. White is there. Ord tags, but he isn't going anywhere. So they were at second and third with nobody out, and they're in exactly the same spot with 2 down.
The center fielder, Lloyd Mosby.
There were very few missed opportunities yesterday, but one was missed last night in the second inning for the Blue Jays. A walk, Barfield double. 3 men went down. Bases loaded 1 time. Royals yesterday left what? 9 on base.
Jackson to Mosby. Inside for a ball.
Now Mosby's funny. Against right-handed pitchers, for some unknown reason, he's got a really severe hitch with his hands, and he doesn't get the barrel out. It disappears against left-handers. Cito Gaston, the hitting instructor, is trying to make adjustments. And sometimes if you get the ball in, he can really turn on it for the left-hander.
2-0.
Mosby seems to get those hips out a little bit better on left-handed pitching, and then the barrel follows.
Ball strike. Mosby came in hitting just .222 in the series, and he's 0 for 2 today, but he's been an important man. He got a big base hit in Game 2 in the 10th inning, wound up scoring the winning run, and his hit last night was really the turning point. The double up the right center gap, and off a left-hander, Charlie Leibrandt. It tied the game, and then he scored what proved to be the winner, one of 2 to come home on Oliver's double.
Mosby led all Blue Jays hitters during the regular season against Royals pitching. He was up near 350.
They're going to get out of it. Danny Jackson wriggles off the hook. Trying to stay alive. Kansas City leads here 2-0. And Tony, you made a good point early in the broadcast saying that even though they trail 3-1 in the series, the premise that the Blue Jays would have difficulty with Kansas City's left-handed pitching, that premise has not been disproved.
Now, Bud Black pitched well, even though he gave up 2 earned runs. Leibrandt, how can you pitch better than that? Jackson, and they looked like they had him on the hooks with a couple of base runners in each of the last 2 innings. Al gets thrown out in third. 2 runs down, maybe overly aggressive. 2 men on here, 3 men go down. Jackson is in a little bit of a low spot, and he got out of it. If he gets his stuff back, he's going to cause a lot more trouble.
Blue Jays, of course, leading in the series 3-1. And looking for the victory that could close it out today. Biancalana tries the bunt and fouls it off.
They like Buddy Biancalana's defense. They think he's a major league shortstop, sometimes bordering on sensational. If he can stop striking out, move base runners, sacrifice, bunt his way on, get his on-base average up, he can contribute next year.
Garth Orge, even though he was playing in close, was able to handle it and throws him out. 1 gone in the Kansas City 5th, and back up to the top of the order for Lonnie Smith.
Orge up in case Biancalana tries to bunt again. Very simple, fundamental, what they call the crossover step. Heard Joe Morgan talk about it. Pre-game show with Dick Enberg. Base stealing, same thing applies when you're fielding a baseball. Don't waste that little false short step.
Strike 1 to Lonnie Smith, part of that great talent pool. Los Angeles City area players. He played with Eddie Murray, Ozzie Smith, Kenny Landreau as a youngster. First steered into baseball by his junior high school coach, Richard Meacham, the father of the New York Yankees shortstop, Bobby Meacham. Two and 1 to Lonnie Smith.
Jimmy Key has struggled pretty much with his rhythm this entire game in his first appearance in League Championship Series play.
Third base hit for Lonnie Smith.
Remember last night he was on 3 times also with 3 bases on ball. There goes the bullpen. Al Widmar on the telephone. Earlier in the ball game, Jim Acker was up. Number 13, Buck Martinez, limping along. That fracture and dislocated ankle in that double tag play against Seattle. Still says, I'm trying to get in shape for the World Series.
That's
Jim
Clancy down there, right?
Clancy, yeah, and that is Jim Eckert. To the left of your screen.
Willie Wilson. First Smith is chased back. Lonnie stole third in the first inning after opening with a double. Ultimately came home on Brett's ground out. He's going, and they've got him picked off. Upshaw down to Fernandez, and goodbye, Lonnie.
Earlier in the year, Pat Corrales of the Cleveland Indians had some of his base stealers, Brett Butler in particular, take advantage of Jimmy Key's slow move to first base. Kansas City has not played the Blue Jays for a while, over a month, and he has sped up his delivery to first base. Another close call to the second base umpire, this time Davey Phillips. There have been so many bang-bang plays in this series.
And Lonnie Smith's performance has run the gamut today. He's got 3 hits, a couple of base-running mistakes, and he's thrown a man out from left field. Pitch to Willie Wilson. Willie was 8 for 16 coming in. He's 0 for 2 today. He's done well in the playoffs. His one World Series appearance, a disaster for him in 1980 against the Phils. Key fans him for the second time today. So we've completed 5 in Kansas City, and the Royals lead it 2-zip. Do you think the Royals grounds crew is adequately staffed, considering the vast acreage that must be tilled on an artificial surface field?
Somewhere among those 40 or so is George Toma, the head groundskeeper. He was at Blues Stadium, and he was at Charleston before that. In AAA ball, he always had the best groomed grass and dirt portion of the field.
Leading off for Toronto, the left fielder, George
Interesting
Bell.
if there was a conversation on the bench between somebody pulling for that series, between Sundberg and Jackson, or Blaylock and Jackson, trying to get him back on the beam. He struggled the last 2 innings.
They had him in deep trouble in the 5th when Orge singled and Witt followed with a double to open the inning. But he left those 2 stranded. Well hit by George Bell. Back goes Willie Wilson, away back, and he's got it. Thank heaven for the padding. And that's the second time in this series that Wilson has robbed Bell at just about the same spot. He did it on Friday night and now here.
This is what this ballpark will do for you. Very forgiving to mistakes. Bell is on the beam with the bat now. Name all the center fielders in the American League, and Gary Pettis is great. Murphy from Oakland, Brett Butler, and more. But nobody chases the ball down like this guy. And when you figure where he started from, how shallow he was for Bell, he had a long dash.
Swing and a miss by Cliff Johnson.
Last 2 pitches he appeared, Danny Jackson, have a little more zip on. Don't know if he can pitch up there, though. His ball appears to be livelier downstairs. It was early in this game.
That's up high, 2-1. The Jays have 6 hits against Jackson. The Royals have 7 off Jimmy Key. We're in the top of the 6th, 2-0 Kansas City. Fouled out of play, 2-2.
Watch Danny Jackson with that lower body. I guess pitching coaches obviously could talk about it better than I could, or pitchers and catchers. They call them drop and drive. They get on that back leg, his left leg, and they drop down, and they drive toward home plate. Sometimes it appears like he drops down so far he's almost thrown uphill, then he goes high.
Full count now.
Not unusual, though, for a young pitcher to get his release point fouled up and lose it for a while, and all of a sudden it comes back. And if it comes back and he throws the way he did earlier, his missed opportunities by the Blue Jays could haunt him.
Got the corner for a called third strike. It's his 5th strikeout of the day and his 1st since the 2nd inning.
He adjusts and gets one down near the outer edge. Starting to throw the ball a little better now.
The Blue Jays had a crack at him in both the 4th and the 5th. Couldn't put anything on the board. The shadows now have completely covered the field. The bright sun that was briefly a factor won't come into play again.
Watching Willie Wilson center field, there is a slight breeze just wafting out to right field. Not much of a factor, but Wilson, I believe, jammed that right shoulder. And he made that outstanding catch off the bat of Bell leading off this inning.
To Barfield, who has 5 hits in the series, one of them a home run on Friday night. And there's another base hit for him. Motley will play it on a bounce. So it gives Upshaw a chance, and Upshaw is a guy who's really been hurt by the fact that only one right-handed pitcher has been thrown in the series so far by Kansas City. That was Saberhagen Friday.
The 2 scouts that scouted Barfield, Alan Mackey and Bobby Maddock, now vice presidents, went to see Bill Gullickson pitch in the suburb of Chicago, and Barfield hit a ball through a hole in the fence off Gullickson, and they said, "Who is that kid?" And they ended up signing him, and look what he's turned out to be. Like Mosby, he learned his trade on a major league level. Not much minor league experience, and let him play through his mistakes. He has matured.
Upshaw can't believe that one got the inside corner. Actually, during the season, Upshaw did not fare badly against left-handed pitching. In fact, some people were surprised when Cox began platooning him with Cecil Fielder late in the year. But in this playoff series, Upshaw has had his difficulties with Black and Lebrand, and so far today, Jackson. There's a base hit for him and hit sharply up the middle. Barfield stops at second.
That problem when he was starting getting platoon, he was hitting about 270 off left-handed pitchers, but Bobby Cox and hitting instructor Cito Gaston felt that he was starting to try to adjust and hit the ball to left and center field off left-handers. They wanted him to pull the ball more. Now it's Bud Black, the left-hander, Steve Farr again. Clarence Gaston coaches the outfield, taught him how to open to the lines and left and right field, how to go back on the ball. He's an outstanding all-star center fielder at one time. Played with Aaron Atlanta, but most of his good work came as a player at San Diego.
'49-year-old Dick Hauser. Great rookie year for the Kansas City A's in 1961. Hit .280 for them. Almost 100 walks, stole 37 bases. In fact, the Sporting News named him the American League's Rookie of the Year in 1961, although the official award given by the baseball writers went to Red Sox pitcher Don Schwall that year.
He was a good base stealer and could take a base on balls and keep rallies going.
just struck out and singled. Sundberg bluffed the throw. Balboni wasn't there. But it sent Upshaw scampering back.
It was a called play. The timing wasn't quite right. Orange hits that way, and Balboni did not want to leave his position too soon. Orange, one of those who hit more home runs this year, this season, than any other time of all his major league years combined.
He hit 7 this year, but remember, only playing against left-handers. Mullenix starts against the righties. Good block by Sundberg. Couldn't find it at first. The count now 3-0.
You bet that keeps the potential tying run in Upshaw off second base, not a scoring position.
Ernie Witt is on deck with the 3-0 pitch coming. Called strike. Orange was on his way to first. He'll have to come back. In fact, when I saw Garth Orge's column in the Toronto Sun on Monday, I expected Mullenix to have the byline on Tuesday, but they don't platoon the column.
Ernie Witt's got that byline. He writes for another newspaper like Hank Bauer does here in Kansas City, former Yankee.
Now the count is 4.
Took a little something off that last pitch on 3-1. Had Orange out in front. You know, sometimes a pitcher will overthrow and actually almost throw a changeup. Whitey Ford used to do that to Ted Williams. And Williams said it's the most effective changeup he ever saw. And Whitey said, hey, that was my fastball. I tried to overthrow it.
Barfield from second, Upshaw from first will be moving. There they go. And it's ball 4. The bases are loaded. That's the first walk of the game for either team. The hits have been plentiful in contrast to last night when Leibrandt took a 4-hitter into the 9th and Steve allowed just 2 hits while he was in there. Steve, meanwhile, was walking 7.
Steve Farr, the right-hander, Bud Black, the left-hander. Blaylock giving him some time. Going to have a little conference. That's the 7th base runner now over the last 3 innings off Danny Jackson, who just about breezed through the first 3. I'll tell you, that catch now by Willie Wilson, the bat of George Bell, crashing into the wall becomes even more important now, doesn't it? Here it is. Bell crushes this ball 410 feet away, and Wilson tracks it down, smacks into the wall, and hangs on.
Gone in Toronto, right?
Oh, like about 30 feet out of the ballpark, minimum.
Not just because of the dimensions, but because of the way the ball is likely to carry there. Ernie Witt double to right his last time. Down to Frank White. Another escape act by Danny Jackson. He leaves the bases loaded. A couple of singles and a walk after 2 are out. But they can't dent the plate. It's 2-0 after 5½. The veteran catcher Sundberg with the young pitcher Jackson, and Jackson has flirted with danger. So far, it hasn't hurt him. The last 3 innings have been an adventure for him each time in one form or another, but he's still got the shutout.
He's been helped out by Lonnie Smith's throw in the 4th, getting Bell. Outstanding catch by Willie Wilson off Bell in the 6th. I think that Sundberg's comments are really, hey, look, your stuff isn't quite that right, your location not quite that good, but look, you still are riding the shutout. It's going to come back. Jackson's a strong kid, but he's not going to get tired out. It's a matter of getting back into his rhythm and his groove.
Leading off for the Royals.
Bottom of the 6th, and Brett will start it for Kansas City. 0 for 2. His ground out in the 1st produced a run. He got the RBI. put it quite simply a few weeks ago in the Philadelphia Inquirer. He said, if you are not yet 44 years of age, George Brett has the highest single-season batting average of your lifetime. And it's true, that 390 in 1980, the highest anybody has produced since Ted Williams at 406 in 1941. One of two batting titles won by Brett, the 390 in 1980. He also nosed out his teammate Hal McRae in 1976 by hitting 333. Three and 0 the count.
All three pitches to Brett in this series, he's dropped down a little more sidearm, trying to make Brett give a little bit. That doesn't bother him. If he likes it, look out.
A called strike. Brett hit that 335 this year after an off season in 1984 when he hit just 284. And he draws the walk.
George was in a little bit of a slump earlier this year. You related the story one of the earlier games, and he got Charlie Lau's hitting film, situational hitting, just reminders and tips that George Brett had a lot to do with. And he said, I knew everything was on that film. He said, it was just great for me to see Charlie's smiling face again. But that's all I wanted, just to see him the way he was, through hard times and easy times. Jim Clancy on the right, Jim Acker on the left. One thing to look for with Brett, one of Charlie Lau's teaching principles, that bat stays touching the left shoulder. See it? So many hitters, once they start their stride, and there's the head discipline, watching it into the catcher's glove, they start their stride, and the leg, the hips, and the front shoulder open up, and the bat goes, and you lose, you push at the ball. That's just a little learning tool.
Those Lau principles, as well as Brett's awesome natural talent, have produced 9 300-plus seasons, and maybe already, I don't think maybe, definitely Hall of Fame credentials already, and he's just in his early 30s, still in the prime of his career.
Hitter Hal McRae.
He'll continue to rack up the numbers, barring injury, for several seasons. Ball one to McRae. And of course, Brett also has that added dimension, a charismatic figure who has continually been able to rise to the occasion in the showcase events. That's off the fists and popped to Garcia. McRae dropped to one knee after the swing.
If he lets that ball bounce or trapped it, he's got a double play, because Hal McRae was sitting at home plate. He spun around so hard he fell down and couldn't get up in time to run. And it's awfully difficult to trap a ball on the turf. But watch McRae. It was all the way down. The ball's going to be just about in Garcia's glove before he gets back up. And on dirt and grass, if you could smother that ball, tougher on the turf, you could have erased Brett also.
Frank White bothered by that sore right hand and wrist after the slide into third base in the second inning.
Brett stole 9 bases during the regular season, was caught one time. A little quicker this year, not only defensively, but on the base pass with that little bit of weight loss and that excruciating off-season conditioning program. He said, I'm starting right after this season's over with.
That despite the fact that Brett stole only 9 times and generally was not a base-stealing threat during the regular season, his thinking changes in postseason play. He's still capable of stealing bases. The reason why he doesn't run that much during the regular season is, why give the body that kind of pounding? He's Kansas City's main man, but he'd be more inclined to run with postseason games on the line.
Well, the thing about this is you got a 2-run lead for the Royals. Frank White's having a little hand injury. He hit the double play yesterday in a crucial situation. And if you want to start him, not a straight steal, hit and run and hit. You start Brett, let Frank put his bat on the ball, because Key's not overpowering. You might get a first and third.
He had Brett starting back toward the bag as he came to the plate. 2-0 to Frank White.
Don't know how well Frank White is able to handle that bat with that right wrist so heavily taped and right hand.
And that one's foul. Here's a look back to that play in the second inning. White coming into third base on the base hit by Balboni, and Garth Iorg coming down on his right hand.
Mickey Cobb's done a lot of work. A little thing to hold the skin together. Band-aid stitches. Perhaps a sprained wrist along with it. Good bruise in any case. Good pitch to start a runner. Bobby Cox, like Billy Martin of the Yankees, has a sixth sense in these situations. He watches the runner, tries to see a little tip-off. He pitches out. Gene Mott may be as good as anybody. They don't steal signs that much. They watch the reaction of the base runner and the hitter, mainly the base runner. That's why they're throwing over him so often, or stepping off. Try and read him.
Fouled out of play, 2-2.
Both bullpens going here in Royal Stadium. Acker on the left, Clancy on the right for Bobby Cox. Mark Gubazov's gotten up now.
Part of their five-man starting rotation during the regular season and assigned to the bullpen for the playoffs. Red at first with one out. Not going on the 2-2 pitch, and White fouls it out of play again.
He's having trouble, Frank White, getting the barrel of the bat out. He's late on that one, too. Jimmy Key not overpowering, although if you're looking off-speed stuff or away for the sinker, he can bust you inside.
Full count. Now does Brett go?
I would think so. Got a 2-run lead. Frank White should be able to put the ball in place somewhere off Jimmy Key.
There he goes, and it's a perfect hit-and-run base hit by White. Brett heads for third. Even the strong arm of Barfield can't do anything about it.
When you rate the top base runners in the American League, not base stealers. Ricky Henderson stands pretty much a class by himself. But you got to rate Winfield and George Brett as far as instinct, aggressiveness. And even though he had to hold up to let the ball get by him, on the slick turf with Barfield's arm, he led the American League assists with 21. Brett accelerated, cut the second base bag well. It's a first and third.
Three straight right-handed hitters do. Balboni, Motley, Sundberg.
Jim Acker starting to make the trek down out of the bullpen.
So Jimmy Key is finished, and Acker will try and hold the Blue Jays close. Watch Brett make the turn at second. White has hit the ball behind him. Textbook hit and run. Runners are at the corners with one out. And as Acker comes in, we'll be back after this. So the Clemson product, Jimmy Key, couldn't quite get it done for Bobby Cox today. He yielded 8 hits in 5 1/3. Also walked a man. That was Brett to start this inning. And now Acker is ready to face Balboni, who pops the first one up, and it looks playable. It's Upshaw just in foul ground. So Balboni, who had stung the ball twice against Jimmy Key, can't get the runner home from third with only one out here against Acker.
First postseason pitch for Jim Acker. He gets a pop out. Another one of those players that the architect, vice president, Pat Gillick, got out of the Atlanta organization. Here's his season's totals. But he had some arm problems down in the minor leagues. Surgery. Bobby Cox, Johnny Sullivan, Cito Gaspar, who roamed the minor leagues for Atlanta, knew of his arm and his ability. They took a chance. And for the first 3 months, he was outstanding. Then he kind of got lost when Lamb started pitching so well. About the All-Star break, Bobby Cox said of Jim Acker, where would we be without Jim Acker? Good sinker, knuckle curve, hard slider.
Well, at the beginning of the year, a lot of people picked the Blue Jays to win the Eastern Division, and their thinking was, with the addition of Gary Lavelle and Bill Caudle, finally the one glaring weakness of the Toronto Ball Club had been shored up. Shored up plenty, because Caudle and Lavelle had been outstanding relievers for the past several seasons. Well, neither one of them met expectations, but the Lamps and the Ackers and later the Henkeys came along. Sheridan is batting for Motley in this situation with Acker on the hill. So Motley, the right-handed hitter, is pulled back.
That was the wicked sinker that he throws. A lot of right-handers don't care to have any part of Jim Acker. He can have control problems, though. Acker during the regular season struck out 42, but he walked 43 and 86 in the third.
1-2 to Sheridan, who had the big pinch hit homer in Game 2 at Toronto. In a pinch hitting role now.
Acker has a lively arm, and the catchers will tell you, Ernie Witt in this case, that he throws a hard sinker that beats your hand to death.
And obviously has a certain fondness for an old cap. Some soil on that baby. Well, they'll leave 2. Jackson has been doing a high wire act for Kansas City the past 3 innings, so the Royals wanted to give him a bit more of a cushion. They couldn't do it. Back after this from your local station. In Kansas City, it's 2-0 Royals after 6 as they try to stay alive. The Dodgers and Cardinals play tonight in St. Louis, and we understand there's a story developing there. Let's go to Dick Enberg.
Bob, it's raining in St. Louis, Bush Memorial Stadium, and the rain has created a freak accident involving the St. Louis Cardinal leadoff man and the candidate for Rookie of the Year in the National League, Vince Coleman, a stealer of 110 bases. Coleman was warming up with Johnny Bench, and just as the rain had slackened, the players started to tune up. Then it came again, and they brought out that automatic roller.
Well, they were taking batting practice. It started to rain. They brought it up. They stowed all the tarps on. And, of course, this big tarp rolls out, and it's mechanical. Now, Vince had come up. He had thrown his glove across the area that rises above about 2.5, 3 feet above the ground and was standing there. I'm only reminded of the times when I was a kid and they used to stand on your foot and push you and you fell down. Really feel like his foot got caught underneath there. He fell, and the tarp rolled over him. I think it was more scare than anything. I hope that's what it is. I think the cushion of the carpet will prevent any kind of break. I wouldn't be surprised if Vince doesn't play today, and right now a lot of people are praying for rain.
It certainly cast a gloom over the St. Louis Cardinal organization and players as they heard their star outfielder screaming in pain, and as he was carried off, there were a lot of pushing and shoving and yelling, and he was moaning in pain, but the latest report is that perhaps it is not that serious. In 15 or 20 minutes ago, there'll be an official report. At the moment, Vince Coleman carried off the field on a stretcher, caught under that automatic roller that carries the tarpaulin on the field. That's the story from Bush Memorial Stadium in St. Louis. Now let's go back to Royal Stadium in Kansas City and Bob Costas.
All right, Dick, thanks very much. Alarming news about Vince Coleman, but perhaps, as you indicated, not as serious as first thought. Now let's recap what just happened here. In the top half of the 7th, Tony Fernandez flying out to Pat Sheridan, who batted for Motley in the bottom of the 6th and remains in the game as the right fielder.
And that's something, not just for this ball game or this series, but those great valuable legs of Vince Coleman. We hope, as Dick Enberg and Johnny Bench indicated, it's not serious.
0-1 pitch to Garcia. Tried to check his swing and tapped it foul. 0-2.
The first 2 pitches to Fernandez, who just flied out to right field from Jackson, were crisp, and they were down. A fastball and slider, so he jumps way ahead of Garcia, and he breaks his bat. He's got it back, folks. Don't know for how long.
Biancalana throws him out.
Blue Jays left the bases loaded in the 6th off Jackson.
Center fielder,
2 on in the 5th. 1 on in the 4th. Might have been more, but Lonnie Smith threw George Bell out at third base.
So now Jackson faces Mosby. Quiet Blue Jay bench at this point. Mosby's grounded out 3 times, tries to bunt, fouls it off. And it was caught on the fly in the on-deck circle by George Bell.
Lloyd trying to bunt will give you an indication of how, even though he's had control problems over the last few, how hard and how well Danny Jackson's throwing. He doesn't bunt very often. I think he could raise his average 10 points if he tried a little more. He has got it back.
Well, if he's back in the groove now, the Blue Jays can only lament the fact that they failed to cash in opportunities in the 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Think about it with this Kansas City team over the last couple of years and often on this year, you've been able to save the starters. Hey, if you give us a good 7 or into the 8th, we got the quiz down there. But Dan Quisenberry has struggled along in this league championship.
Ball, strike 3. A 1-2-3 inning for Jackson. The first time that has happened since the 2nd inning. His 6th strikeout of the day. Middle of the 7th. 2-0 KC. Bob Costas back along with Tony Kubek. What a sports day on NBC. We started out with the football. This ball game now in the 7th inning, and we'll go to Vin and Joe in St. Louis. Game 4 of that series at 8 Eastern time. It'll be John Tudor for the Cards, and Jerry Royce will pitch for the Dodgers, and we certainly hope that Vince Coleman is not seriously hurt.
Well, I would hope so. He's been so exciting to watch, and we hope he can play today. We'll get a further report, I'm sure, when we can or when that game starts. Right here, 16 base hits. You think the score, each team has 8, the score would be much more than 2-0, but a lot of missed opportunities. Blue Jays have stranded 8, Kansas City 5. Jimmy Key really struggled, but he kept his team close, something this club has learned from Doyle Alexander and Al Widmar, the pitching coach. I always mention those two together because it's like having 2 pitching coaches on the same club.
Jim Acker in relief of Jimmy Key. Strike 1 to Sundberg in the bottom of the 7th. Sundberg, Biancalana, and Lonnie Smith. Breaking ball for a strike, 0-2.
Back for a while, a couple of weeks ago when Bill Caudle was having trouble, they had another pitching coach. Gaylord Perry came out of North Carolina uniform to coach Bill Caudle.
Two pitch. Curveball got him. Again, a reminder, we'll select the NBC Light Beer for Miller Player of the Game at the conclusion of the contest. And right now, Danny Jackson's got himself positioned for the award, although on a couple of occasions he had himself positioned for an exit. But every time he needed the absolutely necessary out, he's gotten it. Biancalana with a little tap back to the mound, and Acker takes care of Buddy.
When he's down there like he was with that knuckle curve to Sundberg, he struck him out and with that sinker to Biancalana. He is hard to lift out of the infield. University of Texas, another product. Cliff Gustafson, one of the great college coaches. I don't know, does Cliff teach that knuckle curve down there? Bert Hooten had it also. A lot of great prospects and major league players have come through that program.
Lonnie Smith has a double and a pair of singles. A drive to right. Barfield started in, now glides back, and they retire Lonnie Smith for the first time. So Acker works a 1-2-3 bottom of the 7th. It remains 2-0 Kansas City.
Well, Brett Saberhagen has gone down. Remember, he went into the 5th inning in game number 3. Royals, of course, have to win this ball game. Back up to Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Joe Beckwith, now the 3rd pitcher who's been up and throwing for Dick Hauser.
I mentioned earlier that Hauser began his playing career with the 1961 Kansas City A's, also played with the Indians and Yankees before calling it quits after the '68 season. Then, of course, a Yankee coach before becoming their manager for one very successful season, and then on to KC. George Bell lifts one into center field. Right center, either Wilson or Sheridan. It'll be Sheridan.
George Bell hasn't had a bad swing off Danny Jackson all afternoon. He just gets under that one. He sent Wilson back to the wall in the 6th. Over in the 1st. Line drive single in the 4th. He's in a groove.
Hauser will have to choose either Saberhagen or Black for Game 6. Hold on today. If Jackson is able to go all the way, or if they go to the bullpen without using either Black or Saberhagen, the best guess is Black game. They can win that one, Saberhagen Game 7.
And if he needs Black a little bit here, more than a few hitters, throw Gubas' name in there too. He has been mentioned in the event that this game starts getting out of hand.
In the air to the right side, it's Sheridan again. He's been busy since coming in for Motley, and he takes care of Flip Johnson.
Up just a little bit. Starting to blow a little bit out toward right field, which is the prevailing wind. On the left field foul pole to the right.
Right fielder,
So it might help the ball a little bit out to right field. Got an indication that rain may be on its way. Wind picking up. Still a lot of blue sky here, though.
Barfield's 1 for 3. Up high to him. Danny Jackson has pitched 3 shutouts this year. That's put him among the leaders in that category in the American League. Bert Blyleven was first with 5. Jack Morris and Britt Burns. Morris of the Tigers, Burns of the White Sox, each threw 4. And Jackson was one of several pitchers who managed 3 shutouts. He pitched only 4 complete games, so he had only 1 route-going performance. Bounce to Brett. He backs up. He throws. It is done, and so are the Blue Jays. So now Jackson, after flirting constantly with danger, has retired 7 in a row. And the Royals will try and give him more breathing room in their half. Strike 1 to Willie Wilson in the bottom of the 8th.
Very close at the corners for Willie from the left side, and they've shortened up in the middle of the diamond, too.
Upshaw. He'll beat Wilson to the bag. And now it's George Brett's turn.
the third base.
Begins to stir in anticipation. And then it turns into an ovation for him. They know this might be the last time they'll see him bat here in 1985. Prior to this year, Brett had never walked more than 71 times in a season, primarily because he doesn't look for walks. He goes up there to swing. But they pitched around him so much this year that he walked over 100 times. Hit hard, but again, it's Upshaw. Again, an unassisted putout.
George says he's one of what he calls twilight zone, where nothing distracts him. I see baseball and react to it. He said, I don't care what the pitch it is, where it is. He usually looks fastball. Doesn't hit in zones. He said, I react to what I see. And with that strength he's added over the last 4 or 5 years, he can pull outside and low pitches, too.
They may be able to do it essentially without him today, although his ground out in the first did produce a run.
Charlie Lau always talked to him, and Lee May is right now about the quality of the at-bat. 2 weeks. Been a lot of quality.
Strike 1 to McRae. As all law-abiding baseball fans know, this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
And just in case Danny Jackson bubble, the ace of his staff is loosening up. What a sinker he's got. Brett Saberhagen. He and Ron Guidry, they're the leading candidates. Cy Young Award, Bill Caudle on the left, Gary Lavelle on the right. Feeling that left elbow, he says he thinks it's getting a little bit better.
The two guys they thought would be their bullpen mainstays, speaking of Toronto now, and for the most part not a factor in this playoff series. In fact, Caudle hasn't appeared, and Lavelle just pitched a one-hitter, right? You can't ask any more than what Jim Acker delivered for Bobby Cox. He came in with runners at first and third and one out in the sixth. He got Balboni and the pinch hitter Sheridan, then worked perfect innings in the seventh and the eighth. So he's given them a chance as we go to the ninth. When they really needed one against the Angels, Danny Jackson gave them the victory that put them in front to stay in the Western Division race. They couldn't need a victory any more desperately in this series than they do today, and he is 3 outs away from providing it and sending everybody back to Toronto. The Blue Jays were shut out into the ninth last night, trailing 1-0, and jumped up with 3. Upshaw will start it. Orge will follow him, and then Ernie Witt is scheduled. Balboni does it himself. Eight in a row retired now by Danny Jackson, dating back to the 6th. Jim Sundberg babied him through those middle innings. How valuable he's been to Danny. And the Blue Jays left all those run around through the 4th, 5th, and 6th. They each of those innings, 2 hits and a walk in the 6th. Orge grounds it foul. He is still throwing hard, Bob. That pitch upstairs just exploded. Orge was way late. While we have a chance, the executive producer of NBC Sports is Michael Weissman, coordinating producer of baseball coverage, Harry Coyle. The telecast of today's game, produced by Ken Edmondson, directed by Andy Rosenberg, technical director, Neil Flagg. I believe he's throwing harder now. He's about 200 pounds. And he is very solidly built and very strong. Teams now, Mickey Cobb, the trainer, one of them, on a weight off season. He's not tired a bit. The gun had him at 93 on the last one. Down to short, Biancalana. And out away from a flight to Toronto. Witt will be called back, and Cecil Fielder, who had a pinch hit double last night, is coming out.
Your attention, please. Batting for the catcher, Witt. Number 23.
In fact, Blue Jay pinched 6 in the series. Some of those pinch hit moves by Bobby Cox were automatic moves in platoon situations. Mullenix for Orr, Johnson, and so forth when pitching changes were made. This might do it. Balboni, we're going to Toronto. And look at Hauser. Just another day at the office. And perhaps that's one reason why his team played with confidence today, and they're still very much alive.
They needed another big game from the kid, and Danny Jackson gave it to him.
He wasn't always in command, but down the stretch he certainly was the master of the Blue Jays. An 8-hit shutout, a 2-0 win, and Toronto's series advantage reduced to 3-2 as we head for Game 6 Tuesday night at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. We'll be back to wrap this one up from Royal Stadium in Kansas City in just a minute. Game 5 of the 1985 American League Championship Series was brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Miller Beer. Miller made the American way since 1855. By Pennzoil Motor Oil. Ask for it. And by Sure. You can raise your hand if you're sure, because Sure antiperspirant helps keep you dry. Today's NBC Light Beer from Miller player of the game is Danny Jackson, who kept the Royals alive with his 8-hit shutout. He struck out 6 and he walked 1, and Light Beer from Miller is happy to present a check for $1,000 in the name of 23-year-old Danny Jackson to help fight multiple sclerosis. There will be a Game 6. Probably Alexander for Toronto, probably Buddy Black, possibly Brett Saberhagen for Kansas City, but likely Black in the 6th, and Saberhagen if there is a 7th. We are told there is no new report on the Coleman in St. Louis, injured in that freak accident involving the tarpaulin. Dick Enberg will update you on that beginning with the pregame show prior to Game 4 of the Dodger-Cardinal series. It comes on the air at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. In the meanwhile, we'll join Punky Brewster in progress here on NBC, followed by Silver Spoons. For Tony Kubek, I'm Bob Costas. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. See you Tuesday night from Toronto.
A promotional fee.